I have a teacher at school that teaches a variety of subjects, and he is generally well liked. The only strange thing about him is that he doesn't call any student by their real names but by their future potential from his opinion. He comes in class and starts doing the register. Potential murderer. Teacher shouts out, and Callum raises his hand as he knows it's him because the teacher always calls him by that name. Potential burglar. Teacher shouts out, and Brian puts his hand up as he has been called that many times by the teacher. Potential psychopath. Teacher shouts out, and Emily puts her hand up as she knows it's her because the teacher always calls her that. Potential cannibal. And I now put my hand up because he always calls me that. He has something for everyone from potential freak accident to potential evil genius. I admit it was fun at first, but now I just want him to call me by my real name, which is Joshua. On another day our teacher starts doing the register, and as usual he calls everyone by their potential and not their real names. But then he calls Callum by his real name. We were all shocked. I asked Callum why our teacher didn't call Callum potential murderer anymore. Callum told me that the reason our teacher doesn't call him potential murderer anymore is because it's not potential anymore, it's real. Callum actually murdered someone. He murdered some homeless man because he knew it will make the teacher call him by his real name. Callum then told me to take a bite out of the dead man by ripping some of his flesh out and cooking it, as it was the only way to make the teacher call me by my real name. I took a chunk out of the dead guy, and he hadn't been dead for long. I cooked it and ate it. The next day for register, my teacher called me Joshua because I am not a potential cannibal anymore but a real one. I was given a patient within the last minute, and he had just tried to commit suicide. I knew nothing else about them. The first thing I said to him was to think about his family. I told him what his mother would think if he wasn't around and how distraught she would be if he was dead. The mother would be so traumatized, especially being the person who gave birth to him. I told him how his mother would miss him and how all mothers cherish their children, and to put a mother through all of that would be devastating for her. Then I said things about how his father would feel if he had committed suicide. His father would be broken, as fathers also love their children. I told him how his suicide would put tears to his father's eyes and how he would not be able to see his bloodline move forward. His father would tremble because he would not have any grandchildren, and it would be such a lonely existence for the father. For both parents it would be such a loss, as all that work and time would be a waste if he had committed suicide. I kept telling my patient to also think about how his friends would feel and even his co-workers. Then I went a bit further and told him to think about his siblings and to understand how they would feel if he had committed suicide. Growing up together, and then suddenly for everything to just go down the soil, it was soul-crushing for them. I got a bit louder and told him whether he would think his siblings would feel great after his suicide. I made my patient realize the amount of people it would affect if he was to commit suicide. I kept urging him to think before he left. Then I told him to think how his grandparents would feel if he had committed suicide, and if he committed suicide, it would surely crush his grandparents. My patient had such a large family and his suicide would affect a lot of people, including his cousins and uncles. I tried to make the patient realize the amount of damage his suicide will have on so many people. And then after giving that speech to my last-minute patient, I opened the file and I was shocked at what I had learnt. His whole family, including his mother, father, siblings, grandparents, and all the cousins had imprisoned and tortured him, and were preparing him for a satanical sacrifice. He tried to commit suicide to escape being offered up to Satan. His neighbors phoned the police for strange noises coming from his house. I then said to him, "Actually ignore what I said and don't think about your family." It was too late. He grabbed one of my pens and stabbed himself in the neck. I'm the poorest man living in a mansion, and whenever I tell people that, they tell me to F off. I really am though the poorest man living in a mansion, and my emotions get the better of me. And I go out in public and I tell everyone that I am truly the poorest man. Everyone knows me because of the house I live, and I have been neglecting keeping the doors locked, and not caring when strangers come in to steal stuff. Recently people are more interested in human-shaped UFOs. They care more about otherworldly visitors than their own kind. Then a crowd started gathering as they all were witnessing another human-shaped UFO, and the UFO did have a human shape to it. I couldn't believe the amount of gathering there was for this human-shaped UFO. I tried to keep shouting at my peril at being the poorest man living in a mansion, in the most expensive neighborhood. None cared, and all they cared about was this human-shaped UFO. Then when I used the telescope to look closer at the human-shaped UFO, I couldn't believe it. It was truly a human-shaped. To me it wasn't a UFO though, because I recognized it was truly a fallen human, and it was one of my children. I started to scream at everyone that it wasn't a human-shaped UFO, but an actual fallen human that was my child. One of my children falling through the skies, and everyone thought it was a human-shaped UFO. Then another human-shaped UFO could be seen, and everyone was intrigued. They want to think that their area is a special place because their lives are meaningless. I looked through my telescope to observe the second human-shaped UFO. People tend to carry telescopes in this area, because that's how many weird things go through our skies. I was able to determine that the second human-shaped UFO was also my second child. I tried shouting to get everyone's attention, but they all shushed me. My two children falling through the skies, and they reminded me of when I was truly rich. When I had all my children, parents, siblings all living in my mansion. That's when I was truly rich. Then I'd borrowed them off to a stranger, because he told me that he needed some of that richness. Now they are all falling through the skies, including my parents and siblings. But everyone thinks they are human-shaped UFOs. I am truly the poorest man living in a mansion. For a quick backstory, I served 14 years in the military, and during this time period I experienced a lot of scary and disturbing things. But this one is the one I will never forget. It was my 8th year in the military. We were in a group of 3 in a mission to Pakistan to destroy an enemy bunker. We were dropped from a plane with supplies on the country's border. Each soldier had 2 guns, 3 grenades, 3 liters of water and food. To last us a couple of days, an AC-4. The plan was to walk 5 miles north from where they dropped us. There was the enemy bunker, which we had opened the hatch by placing AC-4 and on it and activating it. After it was open, we needed to throw 3 grenades inside and run back to the dropping spot where they would fly us back. We started the walk north. We were in the middle of nowhere. No people, no cars, no houses, just desert. Me and the other 2 guys, Mark and John, started talking. Mark said. This whole mission seems strange. Why didn't they give us more details? John replied. I don't know, but that's the mission. We gotta follow the instructions. I said. John's right, don't ask questions, just follow orders. Mark said, okay, but when something weird starts happening, don't come complaining to me. After an hour of walking, we arrived at the bunker. Everyone was ready except Mark. He was looking nervous. We ignored his suspicions though because we had to focus. John carefully placed the C4 on the hatch, and we all got 30 meters away from it. John detonated it, and it opened the hatch. I ran to the bunker and threw the 3 grenades down there. I waited a few seconds after the explosion, and ran back to the group, but I slipped and fell into the bunker. I looked around the place, and it was empty. There were no people, no army gear, no computers, no nothing. Mark came to get me back, he shouted. Get out of here, and let's go. John is running away. I can't wait for you much longer. I told him, look at this place, it's empty, what the F were we even exploding? Mark said. You're the one who said just follow orders, what do you want? I replied. I know, you are curious too, let's check what we risked our lives for? Surprisingly, Mark agreed. He got down, and we took a look around the bunker. We found an open steel door. I said, come on, let's check what's inside. Mark said okay, but after this we are out of here. I agreed and I opened the door, but Mark didn't come inside with me. He seemed a little too scared. Inside there was a room, with a desk in it. On the desk there was a note. This is what was written in the note. So, you got here, I gotta say. I never thought they would send anyone here. Well, I guess they did. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you what was this room used for. Let's just say you probably don't want to know. I was disturbed from this. I felt like someone was watching me. I noticed below the note, there was a picture. The picture captured 2 men smiling in the room, and behind them there was a tall black creature. I couldn't tell what it was, but I knew it wasn't human. It was taller than the room, and the room itself was about 9 feet tall, from what I remember. I left the room, and Mark said, so what was in there? I didn't want to frighten him more, so I said nothing, just another empty room. He said, weird, with a little chuckle. We were climbing up the ladder to leave the bunker. Mark got out first, but before I left I heard laughter coming from the room. I looked there, and I saw the black creature smiling inside the room. I could only see the head, but I knew it was at least 10 feet tall. I was terrified, and climbed out the bunker. I saw Mark outside. He asked, What happened? You look like you seen a ghost. I replied, nothing, just got a little claustrophobic, that's it. I couldn't tell Mark. I knew he'd start freaking out, and I didn't want to disturb him. We ran back to the dropping point. As we reached there, they were waiting for us on a small plane. John shouted at us, where the hell have you guys been? I told him, my leg just got stuck, sorry. He said, next time watch where you're going. In the flight back I thought to myself, what the hell did I see in that room? Who wrote that note? And who or what was that creature? I asked myself, was the mission to kill that thing? Well, I'm still not sure, but what I am sure about is that I saw that creature down there smiling at me, laughing.